everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on X, Facebook, and on Instagram. I am Bryson Carver. It is great to be with you on this Monday. I will say, just as a disclaimer, so to speak, before we get into the show, I have been somewhat under the weather in the last 24 hours. So if my voice at any point sounds off, or if I, cough or something, or mute the mic to cough, or take a drink of this glass of water or whatever, y'all know why. But regardless, we've got an absolutely loaded show on tap for you guys. Why Dak Prescott is indisputably, ladies and gentlemen, indisputably in the MVP discussion. Talk about that. Also get into the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost their first game of the year, and they've got an offense problem, and I think mainly an offensive coordinator problem. Talk about that in about a half hour on the show. Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold just casually giving us the best quarterback duel that we've seen this season. Both were absolutely sensational yesterday in Seattle. Get to that. Reaction to all the other Week 5 games in the NFL. And at the end of the show, a game that, honestly, I can't lose in tonight. I mean, really. I'm a big Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs believer on one side, and I'm a big Trevor Lawrence believer on the other. Like, okay, do I gain anything from the Chiefs winning? Not really. They win a lot. I gain a little bit if the Jaguars win, if Trevor Lawrence plays well, so we'll see what happens. I'll predict that game at the end of today's show. But first, you know what? It sure looks like it. The New England Patriots are back. Now, just to pat myself on the back to a certain degree, I called this on Friday. This was my upset of the week, which, by the way, upset of the week, 3-0 in my last 3 games. One could say that I'm kind of on a roll right now. But in all seriousness, New England wins that game last night, 23-20, in a spot where, yes, Buffalo shot themselves in the foot over and over and over for 60 minutes. 3 turnovers, they were loose with the football, all of it. But at the same time, I'm watching that game start to finish, and I'm thinking, New England's just outplaying Buffalo. Now, some of that is because Buffalo has some real limitations on the defensive side of the ball, which is the main reason I said that Allen was going to be the MVP before the season, because he was going to have to put up insane numbers just to win a bunch of shootouts with this defense. And also why I don't necessarily trust him. Not saying they're not a contender, but I don't trust him to win multiple playoff games consecutively because I don't think they can get enough stops. But the story last night was Stephon Diggs, the former Bill, and we can show y'all what Stephon Diggs did yesterday. He was outstanding. 10 catches, $146, obviously 14.6 yards per catch. But of course, someone had to get him the ball, and that was none other than Drake May, who in the second half last night was outstanding. 13 of 14, that counts for 92, basically 90% completion percentage on 14 attempts, 184 passing yards, a passer rating of 119.7 in the second half. And of course, he led the game-winning drive, in which the kicker steps up. And I mean, for a 50, I think that was a 52-yarder. That thing would have been good from 72. It's unbelievable. I mean, that looked like a chip shot. Right down the middle, hits the top of the net. It was unbelievable. So kudos to the special teams for New England. But Mike Vrabel has brought this organization back. Mike Vrabel has brought a truer version of the just farce that was the Patriot way. And the reason I say it was a farce, well, no Patriot way, it was the Tom Brady way. It's just the fact that you happen to have the greatest player in the history of the National Football League, Thomas Edric Patrick Brady Jr. Bill Belichick botched numerous drafts really for the last decade, did not draft an offensive Pro Bowler for the last decade outside of Mac Jones, and he's balling in San Francisco. Kudos to him. But do we all kind of look at that as like, Pro Bowl, weird stuff going on there? Botched drafts, poor coaching, bad staffs. Well, now all of a sudden, we know Vrabel can coach the defensive side of the ball. We know Josh McDaniels for his failings as a head coach in his career. Josh McDaniels is an excellent OC. Mac Jones went to a Pro Bowl with Josh McDaniels calling plays. Drake May, and I said this part of the reason I picked New England upset. Every game I watch them, they look better. And that is the ultimate mark of a well-coached. Really, for a guy who's in his first year with an organization as the head coach, there are 2 things to look at. Number 1, is their side of the ball good? Mike Vrabel's a defensive coach. Patriots got a good defense, so check. And the other thing is, do you see a they don't have to be a championship contender by any stretch, but do you see a continual progression? Do they look better each and every week? Week 1 against the Vegas Raiders, see what Vegas looks like now. They're a disaster. It looked exactly like last year's Patriots. They didn't see the field that well. Receivers couldn't separate. Line kind of got worked. I'm like, oh boy. I picked New England to go 9-8 this year, maybe be on the outside looking in for the playoffs. I don't know about this. And then week 2, defense wasn't great, but offense was solid. Special teams made a play at the end to win the game against the Dolphins. And then in week 3, you heard me 2 weeks ago, I came on the show and said, they should have beaten us. I'm a Steelers fan. They should have beaten the Steelers. But 5 turnovers, 2 of them of which at the goal line, they outplayed the Steelers. Just couldn't execute in terms of, being able to not turn the ball over, basically. And then last week, I get it was Carolina, although Carolina, nice win yesterday against Miami. Drake May looked sensational. He looked comfortable. I said this after the game against Pittsburgh. When Drake May has time to throw the football, deadly accurate, sees the field pretty well, does not get enough credit. Maybe it's because maybe he's of a lighter complexion. I don't know. But Drake May can move well. Doesn't get enough credit for that. Like moves relatively well in and out of the pocket. And so, and then you got Stephon Diggs, who, if this guy can stay healthy, because knock on wood for him, injuries has been a concern for Stephon. If he can stay on the field, he's not the old Stephon Diggs that was putting up insane numbers his first couple of years in Buffalo, but he's still a true number 1 wide receiver in the National Football League. There's no question about it. You still got guys like Keyshawn Butte. Now, they did lose Antonio Gibson last night to an ACL, which was devastating, but New England's got weapons. New England spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball to bring in free agents. They drafted relatively well this past spring. Like, for this to be year 1 and Vrabel to have done the job he did, I know a lot of people are down on the Bills today. Oh, the defense is bad. Well, we knew the defense was bad. We knew that was a problem. Josh Allen had a down game. Happens to the best of them. I don't think it changes anybody's minds about whether Josh Allen's a great player. Of course he is. Just had a bad day at the office. Some of that's New England's defense. Some of that is the fact that they were able to get good pressure. Some of that was great coverage on the part of guys like Christian Gonzalez and others, who, by the way, different defense. We see him back on the field. Obviously, he missed first few games of the year. He's back up for New England. Looks like a new defense. He's an incredibly talented player. I loved him out of Oregon. So you look at this Patriots team today, I'm by no means saying, oh, they're championship contenders. That's obviously not true. They're not quite ready to take that step. I don't think they have the personnel to be able to, compete with the likes of the Kansas Cities, the Buffalo, heck, these days, the Indianapolises. But in terms of building a culture, in terms of setting a standard, and so often, this whole weekend was just a massive indictment on Belichick. You saw what happened in North Carolina. They're down at one point, 38-3 to Clemson, who was just circling the drain at one point. And then this weekend, obviously, Vrabel getting the win in Buffalo. For so many years, Belichick fell in love with his own genius, or at least supposed genius. He's a great defensive coach, but, folks were acting as if he was some, revolutionary on that side of the ball, which couldn't be further from the truth. And it felt like over time, Bill was like, players can come and go, but the system's going to remain, and we're just going to keep winning. When it's a player's game. Forget the Tom Brady's world. We know who he was and what he represented as a player, but you needed superstars on the defensive side of the ball to make your scheme work. You needed to be able to draft well. You needed to be able to evaluate talent well, and Bill never could. Elliott Wolf, better at that than Bill Belichick was. Obviously, Vrabel has a say in personnel as well. And so you see Vrabel. Vrabel is he's a defensive coach, obviously, and so is Belichick. But he's very much no BS, no crap. Guy loves his players. Tennessee, former Titans players can attest to that. You would see after some of those big late season wins or playoff wins over Baltimore, or that game they beat New England back in 2019, you saw Vrabel hugging his guys, coaches them hard. That's the ultimate mark of a kind of a no-nonsense coach. That's what he or she's got to be able to get in your behind over and over and push you and challenge you. But your players have to know you love them. Pat Summitt, God rest her soul. Pat Summitt with my Tennessee Volunteers, Lady Basketball for decades, was the example of this to a T. Candace Parker, the legend Candace Parker, talks about all the time. When Pat Summitt gave you that death stare with those blue eyes, you're like, okay, she means business. Pat Summitt loved her players to death. That's how I feel about Mike Vrabel. Didn't really feel that way about Belichick. And so it feels like kind of a new culture has come into this organization, and it's contagious. You saw the locker room after the game, and of course the locker room after a big divisional win on primetime, kind of your first, hey, pay attention to us type of W, is going to bring a whole sense of excitement to it. But man, I'm seeing Stephon Diggs and the darn kicker. Again, kicker hit a walk-off field goal, but it just seems like there's this vibe in the organization that doesn't feel like it did even at the end with Brady and Belichick, where it would feel like, okay, Tom's going to be great. Bill's going to coach the defense, but fall in love with his own genius. Tom's going to have to bail him out in the playoffs. It felt like Tom was dragging the franchise at the end, and he was. We saw that because then Brady goes to Tampa, wins the Super Bowl year 1, and almost wins an MVP year 2. if you're a Patriots fan, you got to feel fantastic. And I imagine a lot of New England fans out there do. And I think it is absolutely safe to say, listen, I know Buffalo's defense isn't good. I think it's safe to say they've got their quarterback in Drake May. They hope they would. Third pick out of North Carolina 2024. And I said on this show over and over throughout the season, okay, there were signs. The arm strength is good. The mobility is good. It's hard to judge him because the offensive coaching staff is atrocious. The O-line's bad. Receiving core is a joke. Give him legit weapons. Give him legit coaching. And then let's see what he's got. And every week he looks better. So kudos to Drake May. Kudos to Stephon Diggs, who's listen, there was a lot of off-season chatter, to say the very least, about Stephon Diggs, and he's in the relationship with Cardi B and some of the off-season videos on the boat. It's like, Stephon locked in. That interview he did with Melissa Stark on NBC before the game was like, man, like, okay, he's locked in. I got no doubts about Stephon Diggs after watching that. It was really, really cool. So shout out to the Patriots. Shout out to them for getting a third straight upset of the week correct for your boy. So very impressed by what I saw from them last night. As for Buffalo, they're going to be fine. I mean, we knew them in Philadelphia, the last two unbeaten teams. Excuse me. We're going to go undefeated the rest of the way. You're going to fall eventually. It makes sense you do to a division rival who is a potential playoff team. So great win for the New England Patriots. Another team who had a great win this week. And not so much as to who they beat, because the team they beat is objectively atrocious. But let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, and let's really talk about Dak Prescott.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
So the Cowboys won yesterday, 37-22 over the New York Jets. The score does not indicate how much of a blowout this was. Dallas was up 20-3 at the half, and they blew the doors off the Jets. And if I had more of a voice, I know my voice may sound fine right now. I promise you I cannot go to different octaves that I normally can. But if I did, I'll try my best and rein myself in. Rain Dakota Prescott did it again. Let's show his numbers against the Jets. He was sensational. Not one, not two, not three, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 62% completion. You want that to take a little bit, Dak, but it's relatively efficient. 237 passing yards, a passer rating of 127, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 87.8. And in the and listen, I know folks are like, come on, it's the Jets. Defense is bad. Justin Fields is not very good. Garrett Wilson isn't getting enough targets. They lost Braylon Allen for maybe the season. He's on IR, and the people aren't sure about Aaron Glenn. It's a disaster in New York. That didn't stop the Jets from almost beating Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. Had them trailing in the fourth quarter in both, so that's something. And B, forget that. What Dak Prescott has done the last 2 weeks is just validate everything I've ever said about him on this show. Everything I've ever said is the fact that when he came into the NFL, it's, it's the running game. It's Zeke. It's the offensive line. Well, that's funny. Tony Romo wasn't there the year before in 2015 because he was injured for most of the year. The Cowboys had a top 5 rusher in Darren McFadden, and they had that same offensive line, and they won 4 games. And Dak takes over with a better running back, but basically the same team, and wins 13. There's an element of the guy's missing 4 of his 5 offensive linemen. His number 1 receiver, who happens to be one of the 5 best receivers in the sport, maybe one of the 3 best receivers in the sport, and CeeDee Lamb, who's sensational. His defense is unspeakably bad. And this is what he's done with all of those circumstances. This is why I've said, and Niners fans get mad about this when I talk about Brock Purdy. Oh, you don't give Purdy enough credit. Yeah, because he's only good when the circumstances surrounding him are darn near flawless. The situation, I don't want to say couldn't be worse for Dak because he's seen worse in his NFL career, but it ain't great. George Pickens already has equaled his career high in single-season receiving touchdowns. Pittsburgh couldn't wait to get rid of him, in large part due to his temperament. CeeDee Lamb's nowhere to be found because he's injured. O-line's beat up. Defense has got awful, and this is what Dak's done the last 2 games. He's been nothing short of spectacular. And by the way, one of those games against the Green Bay Packers, of course, who have, I don't know if you've heard, one of the 5 best defenses in the sport. 8 touchdowns, no picks, 71% completion, 586 passing, a passer rating of 126, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 91. Dak Prescott has been sensational, and the fact of the matter is this, and I'll use an analogy. We had the GOAT discussion all the time in basketball. Is it LeBron Jordan? And by the way, I think those are the 2 best ever. But I'm always, and I shouldn't because I'm not him, but I'm almost personally offended when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's name never gets brought up. Wait a second. 6-time champion. This is Jordan. 6-time MVP. That's the most ever. Most unstoppable shot in history and led the league in scoring. Was the all-time scoring leader for almost 4 decades. Why does nobody bring up Kareem? It's like, it's an unallowable opinion. I've heard folks talk about this. Like, if you want to maintain credibility, what's an unallowable opinion? One of them would be that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar shouldn't be in the GOAT discussion. That's an unallowable opinion if you want to have any shred of credibility. Kareem is at least in the discussion. In other words, you can make a case that Kareem's the GOAT. I don't think he is, but it's idiotic to say he's not in the discussion. Let's use another field for maybe some of my history nerds out there, because some of y'all know I'm a huge fan of presidential history. That would be like, if we had a debate, who's the greatest U.S. president ever? And it's like, oh, there's Lincoln, who's the GOAT, by the way. There's George Washington and the 2 Roosevelts and Eisenhower, and then someone raise their hand. No, I know who it is. It's Chester Arthur. Yeah, get this guy out of the room. Who's this guy? It's like, if you want to maintain credibility, you just can't have that opinion. I've said many times that the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL are pretty much locked. In this order: Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. In terms of locked, I feel that way about 3. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. Burrow, I think, is the 4th best. He is not locked there. Again, by no fault of his own. He can't stay healthy because the Bengals organization refuses to put an offensive line in front of him. That's not his fault, but that's the reality of it. Best ability is availability, and this is now 3 serious injuries Joe suffered in his career. He hasn't been available. I say that to say this. If someone tells you that Dak Prescott should not be at least in the discussion, at least have his name be brought up as a top 5 quarterback, then they simply have no credibility, because it's ridiculously false. I'm not even saying I have him at that number 5. Again, we're in October. The list is fluid, but here's what I will tell you. Is that we know about the chaos and dysfunction in Dallas, which Dak has never gotten enough credit for how well he's managed all of that. Just as a leader, as in terms of his temperament with the media in Dallas, with Jerry, all of it. Dak's been a A++ in all of those in terms of his temperament, his character, all of it. But let's talk about the actual production. His last 3 healthy seasons. 2021 broke the Cowboys' single-season record for touchdown passes. That's pretty good. His most recent healthy season, start to finish. 36 touchdowns, 9 picks, 2nd best passer rating, and almost won league MVP. Led a Cowboys offense, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, who had CeeDee Lamb, is awesome, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Tony Pollard, took that to the best offense in football and 12 wins. And now this year, think about this yesterday, folks. CeeDee Lamb, gone. Top 4 offensive linemen, gone. Defense, atrocious. Best kick returner for the Cowboys, Kevontae Turpin, gone. Dak Prescott's leading receiver yesterday, and I'm not joking when I say this, was somebody named Ryan Flournoy. That's what he's working with. And in the last 2 weeks, he's done that. 8 touchdowns, no picks, 71% completion, 586 through the air, a buck, 26.1 in terms of passer rating, and a 91 QBR from 0 to 100. I say all that to say, Joe Burrow was getting MVP consideration, and Joe was sensational last year and absolutely deserving of being an MVP candidate, but folks said that agnostic the Bengals record. It's like, I know they're 9-8. I know that there's a better chance than not they're not going to get in the playoffs, which they ended up missing the playoffs. What this man is doing with a terrible defense, a non-existent running game, a bad O-line, and a coach we don't really like is insane. Dak is doing something very similar. Now, the coach situation is a little bit different because I think Schottenheimer is actually doing a good job, and the Cowboys' running game is good. But unlike Burrow, as of right now, the Cowboys' receiving core, the number 2 receiver, folks, Ryan Flournoy. The defense is just as bad as Cincinnati. And Dak is having the best season of his career. It has always been this. Dak drags the Cowboys and really has for the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years. And everybody kind of follows him from there. The owner thought it was a good idea to trade one of the best defensive players in the world. We'll see we'll see if they botch or don't botch the 2 first-round picks they got from Micah Parsons in addition to the 2 that they have in the next 2 drafts, because Jerry's recent draft history ain't great. But Dak's out here working with George Pickens, who the Steelers could not wait to get rid of, as his number 1, Ryan Flournoy as his number 2, and Jake Ferguson, who's a good tight end, but I didn't know till Greg Olsen brought up on the broadcast yesterday, and got a touchdown in a year and a half. Like, what are we doing? I'm not even saying Dak's still front runner for MVP. I'm saying you cannot have discussions about MVP without Dak's name being mentioned, and you cannot have a discussion about one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league and his name not be brought up. After how he has dragged this franchise, majority of his career, particularly the last 4 years, this could have gone haywire fast in Dallas, and now they sit there and they're like, we're 2-2-1. Game against, now Carolina's solid, but game against Carolina next week, shoot, we could be a playoff team. Probably should have beaten Philadelphia. Should have beaten Green Bay. Those are 2 apex contenders in the NFC, despite a bad defense, despite a young head coach, despite in one of those games not even having our number 1 receiver, and the other game, that number 1 receiver dropping 3 critical passes. And Dak has been awesome in these games. Rain Dakota Prescott. He just does it every week. Down season last year, and I criticized Dak for it. Down season last year, but Rain Dakota Prescott. He's back, ladies and gentlemen. Make no mistake about it. Dak's back. So yeah, that was incredibly impressive last night, or yesterday afternoon. All right, we're going to go to break. Feel free to chime in the comment section. We will go to break, and when we come back, speaking of NFC East teams, Philadelphia Eagles, they've got this thing called an offense problem. We'll talk about them after the break here on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Thanks for stopping by on this Monday. Like I said, feeling a little under the weather, so if my voice sounds, or, I don't sound the best, that's why. But listen, given what happened over the course of this weekend, there's no way on planet Earth I was going to miss this show. There's no way. And by the way, some of the stuff that isn't necessarily going to be featured as a full-blown topic on this show, I mean, Penn State, like, what the heck, man? James Franklin. UCLA? Man, I'll excuse, I don't even say excuse it. I can understand you losing to Oregon. Dante Moore's the truth. Dan Lanning's a great coach. Oregon was the number 1 seed in the playoff last year. Undefeated, Big Ten champions. No win UCLA, who had not led a second this season. Nico Iamaleava looks like the Nico Iamaleava that us Vols fans thought we would get. It's unbelievable. And something else that was beautiful to see. Something was very beautiful to see. I was down on Friday after my Sox got knocked out by the Yankees. But in Game 1 against the Toronto Blue Jays, by a final score of 10-1, this happened.
The Yankees lose.
And then yesterday, by a score of 13-7, at one point, folks, Toronto is up 12-zip. This also happened.
The Yankees lose.
It was truly a beautiful thing to see. So, listen, I'm not exactly pulling for Toronto once they get to the ALCS. But if y'all can complete the sweep at Yankee Stadium, woo, keep doing your thing, Blue Jays. It's a beautiful thing to see. It is great to see the Yankees just falling on their faces as they do every single postseason. It's a great thing to see. All right, so Philadelphia, man. suffered their first loss of the year to the Denver Broncos, 21-17. At one point, they had a 17-3 lead in the fourth quarter. Bo Nix came alive. That's a couple scoring drives. Sean Payton Sean Payton does not get enough credit for how great of a coach he is. Going for two in that spot where he's saying, we're going to put the dagger in this thing. Not the dagger, so to speak, but we're basically going to take this by the jugular. We're going to say, hey, Philadelphia, onus on you. You got to score in our defense. You got to score against Nick Bonitto, who is he is the best defensive player in football that nobody talks about. I mean, yesterday, 2.5 sacks, 5 pressures, and a 21.7% pressure rate. That's according to Pro Football Focus. Nick Bonitto was just wrecking everything against that Eagles offensive line yesterday. My big concern, personnel-wise, for this Eagles team, or production-wise, production and personnel, I guess, was Philadelphia's back end. Dak lit them on fire. Now, Dak's like lighting everybody on fire. Let's be fair. Mahomes and the Chiefs, without their top 2 receivers, were able to get some big plays over the top. All right, in week 3, Stafford does that to a lot of people, but a lot of big plays over the top to Devontae and to Puka Nacua. And then last week against the Tampa Bay Bucks, they gave up not 1, but 2 70-yard plays, 70-yard chunk plays. So like the secondary, this back end for Philadelphia, I could see them making a deal at the deadline to be able to address it. But at the end of the day, Vic Fangio's the DC. Like he's Vic Fangio, Steve Spagnuolo, Brian Flores. Those are the 3 in any particular order you want. Those are the 3 best defensive coordinators in the entire NFL. Fangio's he's a pro. He's done this for decades. He'll get the defense right eventually, in large part because Philly's front 7 is excellent. Zach Ball with a dumb penalty late, but their front 7 is excellent. Philadelphia should not be this inept offensively with the personnel they have. With a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who played 2 of the best Super Bowls that we've seen in the last decade against the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. With a Saquon Barkley who had 2,000 rushing yards last year, almost broke Eric Dickerson's record for single-season rush yards. Probably would have if they'd have let him play that last game. Offensive Player of the Year with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and that O-line, which, by the way, again, look at the Pro Football Focus stuff and just watch the games. And again, I know they were facing the Broncos front 7 with Nick Bonitto. I get it. But they got worked yesterday. And that doesn't happen to Philadelphia offensive lines. I think it's on the board, folks, that they have an offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, who is just not cut out for the job. The guy might be in over his head. Because, the conversation last week after Philly starts 4-0, they get the win over Tampa Bay, kind of survive after a late Tampa rally. And I talked about on my show with the A.J. Brown stuff, and I made a claim that people crushed before, but I stand by it. Trade A.J. Brown, you get a lot of return for him. The fact of the matter is he's still a great player, but he's not indispensable for you to compete for championships. That's Saquon. That's Jalen. That's the offensive line. That's the defensive line. It's almost as if Kevin Patullo, the OC for Philadelphia, first-year OC for Philadelphia, heard those narratives and was like, you know what we should do? Not give the ball to Saquon Barkley, because that's exactly what happened. We could show you Saquon's numbers yesterday. He had 5 yards of carry, but on 6 attempts. They gave him the ball 6 times. And by the way, Saquon caught a wheel route for a touchdown from Jalen Hurts. But that's the most damning line at the bottom of that graphic. Eagles led by 14 in the fourth quarter. And you mean to tell me Saquon should have had 6 carries on a drive, much less the whole game? It's like Kevin Patullo was pressured either by A.J. Brown's social media posts, by the narrative surrounding the Philadelphia passing offense, the fact they had 0 yards in the second half against Tampa. Like, hey, forget that we've got maybe the best back in the league. Forget that. Let's just, bombs away. And in watching this Eagles team, and I'm not going to full-blown apologize to Kellen Moore, although good win by the Saints yesterday against the Giants. I've been a Kellen Moore critic for years. I've joked on the show. Yeah, Kellen Moore's great OC. He had the idea to give the ball to Saquon Barkley. That's more than Kevin Patullo will do. I read that the wheel route from Jalen to Saquon that went for the long touchdown, Jalen checked into that play because he didn't like it. We saw at the line of scrimmage, and they got a touchdown out of it. So essentially, hypothetically speaking, Kevin Patullo accounted for 10 of the points Philadelphia scored yesterday. 10. And Denver is a great defense. Don't get me wrong. They have a great defense. Hufanga, I like him a lot. The same thing with Bonitto and these guys. Great front 7. Great back end. Pat Surtain, best corner in football. This should not be happening because it's happened multiple weeks. Second half against Tampa. First half against the Rams. Second half against the Chiefs. Really all game against the Chiefs. Second half against the Cowboys. Like they just go into an offensive funk. And after what they did last year, after what they did 2 years ago with good OCs, after what Jalen's done in 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, after what Saquon did a year ago, you mean I'm just supposed to, this offensive line, I'm just supposed to believe, oh, they're just not good anymore. Nick Sirianni's calling card, because Sirianni's a bad play caller. We remember his first year in Philadelphia in 2020 when he called plays, the Eagles started 3-6. It was terrible. Where I've given Nick, and I've been a critic of Sirianni at least up until they won that Super Bowl. I'm like, you know what? I've come to terms on 2 things that he's great at, and it's indispensable for Philadelphia. Number 1, he's a culture builder. Players love him. They do. Like there's a bit of he's a cousin of the Dan Campbell style of coaching. Motivating, getting guys ready to play, all of those matter. Sirianni's got that. And the number 2 thing he does, he hires good staffs. You got to give him credit for it. I mean, you look at obviously Vic Fangio, who's been the DC in Philadelphia. He's amazing. You think about that coaching staff back in 2022 when he had Jonathan Gannon running the defense, Shane Steichen running the offense. That was an amazing coaching staff. Well, now when you have, a guy who is just completely in over his skis as the offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, I mean, it's like he's, and I know the Philadelphia media and fans can be demanding. I get it. That's the climate in the Northeast in terms of sports in general. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Boston, New York, we get it. But man, you can't listen to that stuff if you're the OC. You can't fall in the trap like, oh boy, AJ's mad. I know Saquon's a great player, and I know Saquon's kind of struggling a little bit. Let's give him less carries. Let's not try and get Saquon into a rhythm. Let's not feed the ball to Saquon. Up 14 in the 4th quarter. That was a weird game plan yesterday by the Philadelphia Eagles and by Kevin Patullo. And it's, listen, if this continues, I mean, is Sirianni going to have to make a change at that OC spot? Like, this is bad, folks. Like, it's not like the deep passing game isn't there. Jalen hit Devontae Smith at a big play downfield. I thought Jalen played pretty well yesterday. Saquon didn't play that well because he didn't get the ball. They didn't give him the ball except in the long wheel route for the touchdown. The explosiveness is still there. I don't know, man. I'm not just like, again, same with Buffalo. Philly was going to lose eventually because no one was going to go 17-0. Obviously, the Dolphins yesterday, you know, they popped some champagne. They do every year, the 72 Dolphins. But, gosh, this is a... When I watch, and I'm not as capable or as qualified as a lot of these experts on television or on the internet that break down film, but just watching with the naked eye, there's no creativity with this offense. I'm not even saying last year there was per se, but they looked like more of a buttoned up unit. The offensive line, there seemed to always be cohesion there. I don't know. Right now, I'm not seeing it with Philadelphia. Busy is in the comments. Someone who knows what they're talking about finally. Well, I appreciate that. Listen, that is, I hope I know what I'm talking about. That's always the goal. But yeah, gosh, this is, and again, he's never called plays before. Talking about Kevin Patullo, man, I don't know. This is, they may, and this could be devastating for their season potentially. They might have to make an in-season OC change. Although, who knows? Again, Sirianni put together good staffs. If you remember, this is a different team, heck, different conference, but, you know, they lost their first game of the year yesterday. Think about the Buffalo Bills. I'm trying to remember the guy they had as their OC. After Brian Dable left, his name escapes me. He kind of struggled. I'm forgetting his name. He's the one who, like, slammed his headset, and then when they lost to Miami back in week 3 of 2022, I think. I forget who it was. His name escapes me. But the Bills' offense was kind of in a funk in 2023. They start 6-6. They fired this guy. Bring in Joe Brady. Look at the Bills' offense now. It's well-rounded. The O-line's good. The running game's good. A lot of O-line plays coaching. It's personnel. Eagles got that. I know Landon Dickerson got hurt, but they've got the personnel, obviously. That's a coaching problem in Philadelphia, and they've got to address it as soon as they possibly can. Yeah, good line here by Patrick Brown in the comments of the Grid Network. He said, A.J. Brown had a walk-in touchdown if he kept running his route. The vibes are definitely off in Philadelphia. The Hail Mary. A.J. batted the ball as soon as it touched Smitty's fingers. Yeah, if no one saw the Hail Mary yesterday that Jalen Hurts threw. Listen, I don't know if Devontae Smith's coming down with that. I know A.J. Brown, as Patrick brings up, is swatting the ball, and I think I think my man Talanoa Hufanga got his hand in there as well. So that'd have been a hard catch to make. Does he even come down in bounds? Because they were in the back right corner of the end zone when that happened. It'd have been a tough play, but yeah, A.J. Brown get his hand in there did not work. And Patrick is 100% correct. That would have been the dagger. Jalen throws the deep ball to A.J. Brown. He slows down the run. It's like, oh my God, what are you doing? Again, I do maintain what I said last week. Kevin Patullo is the problem, but I maintain A.J. Brown is not essential to the Philadelphia Eagles competing for Super Bowl. You know who is? Jalen, Saquon, the O-line, the defensive line, Vic Fangio. Those guys are indispensable. Ken Dorsey, thank you, Patrick. Ken Dorsey was the former Bills OC. Yeah, I remember Ken Dorsey took over for Brian Dable, and they lost that game to Miami. I think it was 2022. And he takes his heads off. He's slamming it. They caught it on CBS, and it was a disaster. And then, again, the next year, the Bills' offense just was not clicking. Joe Brady takes over, get on a hot streak, go to the playoffs, and he's been there ever since. He's done a fantastic job. It feels like Philadelphia's going to have to make a very similar move. It does, because this guy ain't it. Listen, I thought anybody could coach this Philadelphia Eagles offense after Kellen Moore did it. Kellen Moore's got Kevin Patullo beat, that's for sure. Again, though, good solid win by the Saints. I'll do like a week 5 recap later. Actually, probably in about 6-7 minutes or so. If you didn't get a chance to see yesterday with the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unfortunately, it was the one game that I lost if I were Batman. 2 in 1 week, so winning week, but this is the only game I got wrong. I had Seattle minus 3.5 in large part. Hey, Seahawks extra rest at home. Tampa Bay's beat up. And what we ended up getting for 3.5 hours was, and this is not, it's not hyperbole, folks, when I say one of the greatest quarterback duels ever. And the reason I say that, and we'll show their numbers, obviously, Darnold and Baker, two 2018 draft, compadres. This is the first time in NFL history that 2 quarterbacks the same game have had 325 or more passing yards and completed 80% of their throws. Other than the Darnold pick, which the ball did get tipped to the line of scrimmage, to be fair, other than the Darnold pick, Baker and Sam played basically flawlessly. Sam, I was impressed with, obviously, with the way he carved up that Buccaneers defense. Baker going against a great Seattle defense with no Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, who's beat up, with a beat-up offensive line. Now, Mika Egbuka is the truth. I loved him out of Ohio State in this past draft. I thought he was the best receiver over Matthew Golden, over Ted McMillan, over these guys. I loved Egbuka out of Ohio State, and boy, he's living up to that. He's been awesome through the first 2 games of the year, and has really stepped up into being the Bucs' number 1, so that whenever Mike Evans does decide to call it quits, they've got their guy. We'll show you what Baker and Darnold did yesterday. So let's start with Sam, who was sensational against the Bucs. 4 touchdowns, the unfortunate interception there at the end, 82% completion, 341 through the air, 135 passer rating, and a QBR 0 to 100 of 95.8. Sam was outstanding. And as for Baker Mayfield, who got the W, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 87% completion, basically 88 because it's 87.9. 88% completion for Baker, 379 passing, 134 rating, QBR 0 to 100 of 90. Baker Mayfield was, both quarterbacks were off the charts great. I'm telling you, I mentioned earlier about Dak Prescott being league MVP. And I think it is, I think it would be inconsistent with the way we put Burrow in the discussion last year, despite the Bengals' record, to not put Dak in based on how he's playing, what he's working with. To a lesser degree, although he's been slightly more productive. Listen, Josh Allen was my preseason pick to be MVP. Again, it's certainly too early to rule Josh Allen out. He had a tough game last night. He'll bounce back. Baker was my runner-up, in large part due to the weapons that he had around him, because it was Evans, Godwin, Egbuka, and you got Bucky Irving running the football in this O-line. Well, now Bucky Irving, that was out yesterday, might be out another week. So there goes your number 1 back. The Bucs did not run the football at all yesterday. Mike Evans is gone. Chris Godwin has missed time. And this Bucs offensive line has been ravaged by injuries. And this man went on the road to Seattle against a great defensive coach in Mike McDonald and absolutely torched them. Now, Mika Egbuka, again, is... We talk about guys, rookies, every single week getting better. I think that like this guy is the runaway right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year, especially the fact that my preseason pick, Amari Hampton, is hurt right now, and he had been playing well. And Mika Egbuka right now, runaway for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But run game isn't there right now. O-line's beat up. Mike Evans is gone for now. The defense has been inconsistent at best. And by the way, we talk about MVP moments. Baker's had multiple. Week 1, down 3 to Atlanta. Or rather, Yeah, down 3 to Atlanta. Go down the field, score a touchdown with a touchdown to Igbukah. Week 2, down against Houston, beat up in that game against a great Texans defense. You're out here smack talking, running for the 4th down on 4th and long. And then they, of course, finish it with the Rachaad White touchdown to win that game with under 10 seconds left. Week 3, the block kick goes back the other way for the Jets. Oh, my God, the Bucs are going to blow it. Nope. Never fear. Baker touchdown makers here. Boom, 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 right down the field. McLaughlin walks it off with a field goal. And then yesterday, down 7, leading the scoring drive to tie it. Darnold throws the pick. They end up getting the field goal to walk it off at the end. This has to be your front runner for MVP. Has to be. I think Vegas right now sells Allen Mahomes. It should be Baker Dak. And Allen Mahomes, to me, are the 2 best in the league. No question about it. But based on production this year, based on what those 2 guys have been asked to work with, one case, it's due to injuries. Other, it's due to injuries and not the best personnel to begin with. In the case of Dallas, I'm blown away by Baker Mayfield. And I'm blown away by Sam Darnold. Like I tweeted yesterday, it's time we at least include Sam Darnold in the elite category. I mean, this is what he's done since last year. And this isn't all Kevin O'Connell. A lot of this, or some of this is with Seattle, obviously. 44 touchdowns, 15 picks, 5,500 yards, pass rating of 105, and a record of 17-5. He's been excellent. We got there's a certain part, like, we've got to forget about the Jets situation. You watching the Jets? Are you watching Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and all of it? Did you watch Aaron Rodgers last year? Jets are a circus. They're a disaster. They've always been a disaster. We got the worst owner in the league in Woody Johnson. That's not Sam's fault. And by the way, Todd Bowles is their head coach. I remember at the time being against them firing Todd Bowles. Well, look what he's doing in Tampa Bay now. He's been pretty darn good. That was a great defensive coordinator in Tampa before he got the head job, under Bruce Arians. So, again, I've joked that the New York Jets is the place where all young quarterbacks' dreams go to die. Well, listen, I guess the Vikings and the Seahawks are Disney World because all dreams come true. Sam Darnold's dreams of being a star quarterback in the NFL, you see what he's doing. He's been excellent. And Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, kind of a similar situation, although he's obviously more productive in Cleveland than Sam was with the Jets. Got him to a postseason, won a playoff game against my Steelers, had a great rookie season, but there were some maturity issues. He didn't necessarily take the best care of his body. Now, it's amazing. Baker's moving as well as I've ever seen him move, including back in Oklahoma. He takes better care of his body. Obviously, he's still, again, if you have an edge as an athlete, by all means, don't lose it, but know how to rein it in. Baker didn't know how to rein it in early at Oklahoma and in Cleveland. Now he does. I mean, for those that haven't seen the video on social media, he's just going back and forth, talking smack to the Seahawks fan. And even after the game, he's running the Tampa Bay tunnel. I don't think he flipped the fan off, but he was yelling at the fan still. Like, he still has that dog, that energy in him. But rein it in. Don't let that come at the expense of maturity, of leadership, of, again, the clutch gene that Baker's shown that he has. And he's been sensational. He is, to me, he's the front runner for MVP, and Dak's number 2. Baker's been awesome. Kudos to him. The one game I got wrong on If I Were a Bet Man. One game. And again, 3 straight weeks hitting on upset of the week. Let's just, before we go into week 5 recap, just quickly, I want to look at week 6 and potential upsets. Because again, I'm red hot right now, folks. So, okay, Steelers are 4.5-point favorites because Cleveland, they should win. The Jets over the Broncos, 7.5-point dogs. That would be a huge upset. What else we got? Ravens over Rams would be a huge upset. We're going to talk about the Ravens. Yeesh. Any other big lines? Green Bay's a 14.5-point favorite against Cincinnati. I doubt I'm picking the Bengals in that spot. And that's pretty much it as far as the big lines. So there you that. Okay. Like I said, kind of a shorter show. Feeling a bit under the weather, but couldn't miss it. Couldn't miss. And hopefully, by the way, by the time I come into Wednesday's show, not only am I feeling better physically, but hopefully the New York Yankees season is over, and so we can have a little bit of fun with that. Because of course, there's nothing in the world like hearing Big Papi say,
The Yankees lose.
It's an amazing thing. It never gets old. All right, so week 5 NFL recap. Let's start with my first If I Were a Batman game that I got nervous on whether it was going to hit, and Carson Wentz, a man I was literally from day one on my show, God's honest truth, almost 6 years ago, October 21st, 2019, first episode of Carving It Up. First take I ever gave. Dak Prescott, clearly better than Carson Wentz. Thank God my first take aged well. And I've been critical of Wentz. Wentz played big late. Wentz had to deal with a kind of a makeshift offensive line. We know the Browns defense is awesome with Myles Garrett and company. Game-winning touchdown, obviously, to, I think it was Jordan Addison who caught it? Yeah, Jordan Addison who caught the game-winning touchdown, made a great acrobatic play to get in. And as for Dylan Gabriel, look, decent production from him in his first start. He had a couple touchdown passes, relatively efficient. Again, there is, and this is why I don't think he's going to be the starter of the rest of the year. I think we are going to see Shedeur Sanders at some point, is the size is, I mean, you saw it's unfair, but you saw after the game, the size difference between him and Carson Wentz. It gets a meme going on the internet. I was watching it live on NFL Network, just gobsmacked. When they're, shaking hands at midfield, it's like, oh my God, Wentz is a big guy, but Wentz dwarfs this kid. I mean, he's about Kyler Murray's height, but not as athletic as Kyler, not with the arm strength of Kyler. So again, but all things considered, against a Brian Flores defense, overseas, by the way, pretty good. A pretty good start from Dylan Gabriel. They got no knocks on the kid, but I just don't think physically, and especially as more DCs get film on him, that he's going to last long term. Vikings needed that win, though. They could not go overseas and losing to Pittsburgh's one thing. Pittsburgh's a solid team. Losing to Cleveland's a different monster. So the Eagles do have a bye, and then they've got a home game against Philadelphia on, I think that is that October 19th is when that game is? October 19th. And we know the Vikings have a big-time home field advantage. So Minnesota goes on the road. They get the split overseas. They'll take that back home to Minnesota with them. Oh, boy. Houston over Baltimore, 44-10. Now, I picked Houston to win this game. I thought even with the struggles they had offensively, the fact that they scored, I believe, 5 offensive touchdowns coming into this game. I think in this game they scored, my bad. They had 6. The Texans had 6 offensive touchdowns all season long. In this game alone, they had 5. Look, I called it from day one. I didn't think they could get this bad, but I called it from day one. Baltimore's not a Super Bowl contender. After that loss to Buffalo, I said, okay, a defense can't be that bad and you be that inept over years of time situationally and me call you a Super Bowl contender. Now, obviously, they're dead in the water without Lamar Jackson, but Derrick Henry doesn't look the same whatsoever. He looks washed. I know he's facing a loaded box. I get that. But this Ravens team is cooked. It is. A lot of folks in the national media, a lot of folks in the national media feel very hesitant to write them off as a playoff team. I'm willing to write them off. They're done. Basically, this point, the rest of the year in the AFC, I mean, they're 1-4 now. They will have to go worst case scenario. They'll have to go on and win 9 of their last 12 games. That's not happening. Not with the schedule coming up of Rams, that's an L. Bears at home, Lamar's probably back for that game. We'll see. Dolphins, they should win. At the Vikings, that defense. At the Browns, that should be a W. Jets should be a W. Bengals should be a W. But then, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Packers, Steelers. So in December, Steelers twice, Packers, Patriots. And they have the Rams next week, by the way. That is not a team that is going to go on this magical run and make the playoffs. They're not. They may get hot late. They may pull a 2024 Cincinnati Bengals and surprise some people like, oh, they might get in. They're on that in the hunt graphic that all these networks show going into the latter parts of the season. They're cooked. As for Houston, look, CJ Stroud was great. The kid, that receiver, make sure I get his name right. The number 2 guy they had, not Christian Kirk. It was Xavier Hutchinson. Like what I saw from him. Again, Kirk made some plays down the field. Again, they're not facing much of a pass rush because the Ravens' pass rush is non-existent with Matabuke gone and Van Noy's been injured previously. Like, I didn't learn that much about Houston because I expected them to win the game. Then putting up 44 is impressive, although it's almost expected at this point to put that on Baltimore's defense. But, God, the Ravens are cooked. Listen. It looks like the Steelers, my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers, who, by the way, had a great bye week. Ravens lost, Browns lost, Bengals lost. It was great. I was a happy Steelers fan, happy camper this weekend. But it looks like we're just going to back our way into the division title. Browns are obviously awful. The Bengals are unwatchable without Joe Burrow and can't stop anybody. And then for Baltimore, they've dug themselves too much of a hole early to get back into the divisional race, much less the playoff race. Steelers, if Mike Tomlin doesn't blow it in December, which he has had a tendency to do in years past, looks like the Steelers might host a home playoff game. Listen, I will be happily wrong on that one. Listen, if we take advantage of a bad division, I'll take it. I will gladly take it. Saints Getting the first one of the Kellen Moore era, 26-14 over the New York Giants. And if I had the Anakin Skywalker, I have a bad feeling about this bit or soundbite. I would play it because Jackson Dart really struggled those last few drives. The last, let's see, make sure I get this right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last 6 drives of the game for the Giants. They ended as follows. Fumble, return for a touchdown, interception, turnover on downs. And Jackson Dart got off to a hot start in this game. He's wheeling and dealing, uses mobility. Clearly the loss of Malik Neighbors was felt. But I thought with this bad Saints defense, but the Saints kind of feasted on takeaways and were able to get the W. So, good for them. The Giants have a short week against Philadelphia, a pissed-off Eagles team. It's not ideal. But, again, Jackson Dart, we know year 1, rookie season, especially now with no Malik Neighbors there. Excuse me. There's going to be a little bit of growing pains here. There's going to be a little bit of inconsistent play. Do you see the potential growth as time goes on with this guy? Definitely took a step back this week against New Orleans, first road test, but we'll see what he does against Philadelphia. That game is in the Meadowlands, I think, right? That's at MetLife. Okay, it is. Eagles, though, are 7.5-point favorites. We'll see how that plays out later this week. What are the games we got next? Broncos, Eagles talked about that. Cowboys, Jets talked about that. Indianapolis Colts. Man, oh, man. They're legit. You will see them on Bryce's best 10 this week. I can guarantee you that. Daniel Jones yesterday, albeit against a bad Raiders defense, but couple touchdowns, passer rating of 113. Jonathan Taylor is a monster, has been out here, just scoring touchdowns left and right over the last few weeks. You look at Indianapolis today, it's like if A.D. Mitchell doesn't have a total brain fart and drop the ball for the goal line, which we had that yesterday again with Arizona, I'll talk about that. If that doesn't happen, and by the way, even still, if they don't give up an 88-yard bomb to Tutu Atwell and the Rams last week, they're 5-0 today. I don't know. Listen, as a guy who picked the Jaguars from the AFC South, in large part because I didn't buy Houston, in large part because I did buy Jacksonville's offensive line and their defense and the growth of Trevor Lawrence. We'll see what Jacksonville does tonight. I'll have my predictions for that at the end of the show. Indianapolis is coming. I mean, they are. Steichen's done a great job. I'll tell you, that's a team I was absolutely dead wrong on this year. I had the Colts as a bad team this year. I didn't think Daniel Jones would have anything in the tank. Forget about that. Steichen's done a great job with Daniel Jones. It's even a further indictment of Anthony Richardson. Jonathan Taylor has always been the best back that nobody talks about. Tyler Warren, who I thought was the best tight end in this past draft, looks awesome. As for Vegas, I mean, Geno Smith. 3 more picks than touchdowns. Yikes. And Pete Carroll, this is not how he wanted his last chapter of coaching to go, but oftentimes it doesn't end the way that we would anticipate. Panthers getting the W yesterday, 27-24 against the Miami Dolphins. Bryce Young was solid in this game. Rico Dowdle. Man, I had some concerns in the spot for the Panthers. I did pick them to win this game, but I have some concerns with Chuba Hubbard out. Rico Dowdle, former Cowboy, who, by the way, after the game was somehow, because the Cowboys and Panthers play next week, like, Dallas better watch out. I'm coming, right at him. How about Rico Dowdle yesterday? 23 carries, 206 yards rushing. He had a touchdown. Obviously led the Panthers in rushing by a mile, of course. Carolina wins this game. They're down 17-0. Come back on the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel is just, looks like a sad. I almost felt bad for the guy after the game. Just a sad man, glasses off, walking back through the tunnel after the game was over. Tua hit Waddle on the long touchdown, and then Bryce and the Panthers go down, score. Again, I said it going into the season. Carolina is not a playoff team by any stretch, but they're a team that could screw somebody's season up. They could. So, good win for the Panthers yesterday. Big test against Dallas. We'll see how that plays itself out in Charlotte next week. I already talked about Buccaneers and Seahawks. Okay, Titans, Cardinals. This was the drunkest football game I've ever seen in my life. I don't even know how to describe it. So Arizona's up 2 scores late. Start the fourth quarter. Cardinals are dealing with tons of injuries at running back with James Conner, Benson. They are beat to hell at running back. And so they have this kid, DeMarcado, who I don't think has ever scored a touchdown in his career. Kyler hands the ball, goes the distance, 70 yards to the house. And as if nobody learned anything from A.D. Mitchell last week, Drops the ball before he crosses the goal line. Just drops it. Hold the ball for a second longer, and the game is over. Tennessee is not coming back from 3 scores to win that game. Even still, by the way, Titans go down. They're down 9. Cam Moore throws a pass, ends up getting, ball ends up coming out. Or I'm sorry, throws a pick, my bad. Throws a pick. Ball gets fumbled, gets batted in the end zone. Titan falls on it. It's like, oh my gosh. And then Tennessee goes down the field and gets the walk-off field goal at the end. Listen, I'm not one of these people like, when you score a touchdown, you turn around, you hand the ball to the ref, and you jog back to the sideline. Man, it's football. It's fun. It's sports. Have fun. Listen, there's a lot of, this is a crazy world we live in. Have fun when you can, man. It's football. It's a game. Have fun. This ain't that. Do whatever you want once you get it. I've been anti-taunting for the NFL. I've been against this rule for a long time. But man, my thing is, if you dominate another man one-on-one physically, you dominate a team, you've earned the right to celebrate. But score first. Get in first. We saw with the kid last year, Worley, was that his name? Or Curly Worley? I forget his name. Curly Worley something. With the Jets last year, fumbling before he crossed the goal line in a game against the Texans on Halloween last year. We literally saw it 8 days ago with A.D. Mitchell of the Colts, probably cost them the game against the Rams, fumbling before he crossed the goal line. And now Amari DiBarcano. What? I don't have any work. What are you doing? Yeah, that was bad. But it goes to what I've said about the Cardinals last few weeks. Man, they are not good at closing games. And last night was the most damning example of that. Commanders dominate the Chargers 27-10. LA goes up 10-0 in this game. Then the Commanders run away from it from there. Jaden Daniels is back. Looked mobile, looked solid. The kid for Washington, Krosky Merritt, ran the football, I thought, very, very effectively. Had almost 8 yards a carry. As for this Chargers team, man, boy, they're a shell of themselves without their 2 tackles. Like, we knew Rashawn Slater would be gone before the season. Joe Alt got hurt last week. Herbert took some crushing blows against the Giants last week in the Meadowlands. Took some hits in this game against a Washington defense that I don't think any of us think is very good. The season might have just turned kind of like that for the Chargers, where it went from, I thought they were kind of in a Super Bowl contending position with the O-line, with the great defense. Just get Khalil Mack back. They'll be fine. Now they got Khalil Mack out. Their 2 tackles out. Herbert struggling in large part as a result of that. They got to get healthy. They've got a game after a bye next week against the it's next week. It's not off the bye. Next week at the Miami Dolphins. Should be a good, get right game. But then they got the Colts after that, Minnesota. So Chargers need to get this ship back on this train back on the track soon, because this could go haywire fast. As for Washington, I picked them to win the game. Good win for the Commanders. They looked a whole different offense once Jane Daniels is back in, as we all know. What else we had? Oh, of course. Last but certainly not least, the gift that keeps on giving on Carving Up Live. Dan Campbell, what'd y'all do to the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday? And covering for me, by the way, on Bryson's, on If I Were a Batman, what did you do to the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday, as you do to just about everybody you play, man?
How about them Cowboys? Yeah.
That one, wrong soundbite. This soundbite.
Kneecap.
Oh, man, the kneecaps were bitten yesterday in Cincinnati, Ohio. Lions win this game 37-24 in a game that was not as close as the score might indicate. Lions were up, I think, 28-3 to start the fourth quarter. Bengals never had a chance. They got 3 late touchdowns, didn't matter. Jared Goff was great. 3 touchdowns. The Lions just absolutely dominated Cincinnati at the line of scrimmage. The defense was solid. A few more takeaways off Jake Browning. Feels like more of a Jake Browning problem than it is a Lions defense showing up and showing out type of situation. But you look at Detroit now. Boy, that loss against Green Bay feels like an eternity ago in week 1. And again, as I keep saying, they will get their opportunity on Thanksgiving in Detroit. Cannot wait to watch that game. Packers-Lions, that game might very well decide the NFC North winner. But man, this offensive line's back and better than ever. It's the best line in the league once again, as it's been for the last couple of seasons. Jared Goff, I've always said, if he's got time to throw, he could be a top 10 quarterback any day of the week. Struggles against pressure, but good protection. He's lethal. St. Brown, Laporta, got a 2-headed monster running back with Montgomery and Gibbs. This Lions offense, listen, it's not to say Ben Johnson wasn't a great OC, because he is. but it's also to say hard to screw up when you have this personnel in Detroit, and the new OC has been excellent as well. Dan Campbell, again, culture over everything. Culture over everything. You can miss coordinators. You can lose both your OC and your DC. In the case of Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, this Lions team just keeps on rolling. And the O-line play was what just stood out to me the most. Because Cincinnati obviously has Trey Hendrickson on that side of the ball. It's kind of the one semi-strength of their team. And the Lions just from start to finish absolutely positively dominated the Bengals yesterday. By the way, this shows, okay, you know what? I can admit when I'm wrong. I am a stickler for Pro Football Focus. And they just tweeted, as I'm talking about the Lions, almost like they were watching the show. Jared Goff against the Blitz this year. Pro Football Focus just tweeted this. 82% adjusted completion percentage, 410 yards, 5 TDs, no picks, passer rating of 143.8. So good against the Blitz. Now, a lot of that is Jared gets the ball out of his hands quickly. I still maintain he gets pressure. He's not that mobile. But against the Blitz, he's solid. Gets the ball out of his hands quickly. So kudos to him. Okay, so there you go. Some news from the game tonight, some injury news, which transitions me perfectly into my prediction for the game. Before we get out of here, we've got Chiefs and Jaguars. Here we go. Okay, so Jaguars, Monday Night Football. Chiefs are a 3.5-point favorite on the road in the spot. So obviously Kansas City, back-to-back W's last couple weeks against a bad Giants team and a not very good Ravens team, but the offense looked like it was the old Kansas City Chiefs offense. The deep ball was back. Kelsey was making plays on third down. Xavier Worthy changes everything with this offense. He does. He gives Mahomes a legit deep threat. Again, Mahomes, in the absence of Xavier Worthy, those first 2 games, really built a good rapport with Tyquan Thornton. The defense for Kansas City is back. But on the other side for Baltimore, again, Trayvon Walker's out. But man, this Jaguars defense, did I say on the other side for Baltimore? I apologize. The other side for Jacksonville. On the other side, that's a legit defense. Leading the NFL in takeaways coming into this week. Had more takeaways in the first 4 games of the season than they had all of last year. Liam Cohen's done a great job of this offense. They're running the football incredibly effectively with Travis Etienne, who's been sensational. Trevor Lawrence still needs to get in that rhythm. This is a prime opportunity. Great defense. Steve Spagnuolo, Chris Jones, Monday Night Football at home against the 3-time AFC champions. This is an opportunity to make your statement, Trevor. As, hey, I'm back. I am the guy from the second half of 2022 that folks like myself thought, hey, Trevor's going to be elite. He's back. But alas, low-scoring game because both defenses are great. Again, I'm in a no-lose position. If the Chiefs win, I get to brag about being a Patrick Mahomes fan on Wednesday. If the Jaguars win, I'll be bragging a lot about my guy, Trevor freaking Lawrence. Alas, I do not believe that'll happen. Give me the Chiefs in the spot. I think their offense is back. I do have concerns about their ability to run the football on a consistent basis, but Xavier Worthy is playing tonight. That's huge. Mahomes has a swagger back. Kelsey's great on third down and in the red zone, giving the Chiefs in a low-scoring affair by a final score of 24-17 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. And with that is all the time I have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on X, Instagram, and on Facebook. Thanks for stopping by. Hit that big red subscribe button right down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And of course, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network. Great stuff planned for you all throughout this week on Carving It Up. Very, very excited. We'll see you then. We'll see you on Wednesday, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. Have a great week. Hopefully the Yankees are done. Hopefully we can have a big old Yankees lose type of celebration. But until then, I'll see you on Wednesday. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. Great day to be a Steelers fan. I got to tell you, great day to be a Steelers fan. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.